Yeah, I definitely want to be respectful of those that joined early. Thank you for coming. And I'm excited to present on this. So it's practical etiquette to level up your business. This will be my 4th year as a real estate agent. And I definitely felt uh, a sense of responsibility, when coming up with this presentation, because I think there's a lot of things that as new agents or veteran agents, it's easy to bring certain habits forward into this industry and this business. And we definitely have a code of ethics and a level of professionalism that we should always maintain. But I noticed in my experience as, when I was becoming a real estate agent, after getting licensed, I joined the #1 team for Keller Williams in all of California. And there were things that I just wasn't taught. I had a mentor. I had a lot of support. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to share today were trial and error. Some of them were very punitive, which means that my behavior was punished when I engaged in certain things in the industry. And I learned very quickly to shift. And so over the years in real estate, I've also noticed other behaviors from other agents, even agents that I've looked up to or have, definitely noticed have many years of experience, engage in certain types of behaviors where I was like, wow, that's really unfortunate, or the experience wasn't as enjoyable, working with them. And so I just feel that, understanding a sense of etiquette and, what are the things that as agents we can level up on to just maintain good business practices and build a reputation for ourselves amongst our colleagues, which I think is critical. So I'm going to dive in. I want to start by defining etiquette. It is a noun. This comes from just Webster's dictionary, and it is the customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. So I thought it was very fitting to, discuss what I'm going to talk about in the category of etiquette, right? Because it is a customary code of polite behaviors in society or among members of a particular professional group, which for us would be the profession of real estate. So I categorized my top 5. I did a lot of research in this and went to different websites and Googled real estate etiquette. And there was a gentleman on LinkedIn that had like 22 etiquette behaviors listed and very detailed. And there were some, after reviewing all of them, there were a couple that I have that I didn't see in his list, but there are, agents talking about this and exploring this topic of, what is good etiquette? What's good business practice? So these are my top 5 based on my experience. And I would love to hear from the audience if you want to expand on anything that I've talked about, or maybe if you want to share an experience that you've had with an agent, and we can kind of talk through that and explore what would be a better way to behave. So my top 5, and I have some really fun stories and examples that go along with these. I've definitely covered up for confidentiality in my experiences that I'm going to share with you. But the first one is build rapport from the start. So one of my strategies, oops, am I still on? Oops. Did I kick out?
I think you've connected from another account. So I'm seeing that there's 3 of you. One that's presenting and then 2 separate.
Okay, am I good now? Am I still presenting?
Yeah, you're all good. You're still presenting.
Oh, weird. Sorry about that.
No, you're all good.
Okay. So build rapport from the start is my first one. Be respectful to our colleagues, honor offer timelines. And this is from both the listing and the buy side. I'm a buyer's agent, so a lot of these are through my buyer's agent experience, but my husband runs our listing business. So just from being his partner, I put a couple in here that we could actually transfer over to the listing side as well. Listing agents love feedback, and high level communication means being transparent. So I'm going to start with building rapport from the start. And I really believe that the agent to agent relationship starts when you schedule the showing. And I've seen this across new agents, myself included, because this is where I got punished for not following showing instructions. And an agent yelled at me to get on the MLS and read her instructions. And I was like, I don't even know where the showing instructions are. When I would schedule showings, I would pull up the MLS, scroll down to the bottom, and get the agent's number and just call them to schedule my showing. No one, not even my mentor, taught me how to properly read an MLS listing page and look for the showing instructions. And I've had veteran agents call on our listings or email us, and I'm like, that's not the showing instructions. So I'm noticing this across the board, whether you're a new agent or a veteran agent, people don't follow instructions very well, right? And I think that goes for any profession, just normal, day-to-day behavior. Some of us just aren't rule followers, and that's okay. But if you want to get on an agent's good side from the start, the best way is to follow those instructions. And I actually have a little example here that I did. So this is one of our listings. And right when you scroll down, you have your directions to the property, the remarks about the property, your agent remarks, and then your showing remarks. And the showing remarks are where the showing instructions will usually be in the MLS. And I never attended to this. No one told me to look for these showing remarks. And then also, as you scroll down to the bottom, before you have the agent information, you have the showing info. And so it'll also tell you who to contact, if there's, showing instructions around how much notice and who to contact and so forth. So really good etiquette from the start. Believe it or not, I've gotten compliments from agents like, thank you for following our showing instructions, whether that's emailing them, calling them, texting them, giving my client's name, sending them pre-approval letters. I now do my due diligence and read this thoroughly and make sure that I attend to those instructions. So that would be my first line of etiquette, and this goes a long way. The second one is be respectful of our colleagues. This seems very obvious, right? However, the example I'm going to show you, sometimes it's not that obvious. But be kind, courteous, and respectful towards other agents. You never know who's watching and listening, right? Even if you're standing outside of an open house talking with your clients and you're maybe you didn't get the best experience from the listing agent in the open house and you're bad mouthing them. Well, maybe their business partners walking up behind you on the street and they overhear, and now you go to submit an offer on behalf of your client, but that listing agent's partner is like, oh, that's the agent that was bad mouthing you. And right. And those things unfortunately impact that rapport. And it may or may not be held against you when you get into negotiations and what they're willing to disclose with you or not, right? So one fun example that I have, and I had to black out all the information. So I was scheduling a showing with one of my buyers, and the showing assistant put me in a group text with the listing agents. And I assume that they had a separate group text between the three of them. And someone had reached out to the showing assistant to schedule a showing. And that showing assistant responded in the group text that I was in, not in his private one with his colleagues. And this was his text. He said, another showing per our emails for Thursday at 4:45 for Cynthia. Can't stand this agent. Can one of you make it? and I happened to be on that text. So just an example of, again, just being courteous, always thinking about who's watching, who's listening. You know, I know gossip and those types of behaviors are very, you know, fun, and people love gossip and love to talk smack, and it can be very addicting in certain social settings and social groups. But I think as real estate agents and professionals, we need to learn to modify and engage in respectful behavior at all times. So that was just a fun little example of something that I experienced and wanted to share with the group. Because
What happened when after that message was sent? Did anyone end up taking the showing?
I don't know, because it wasn't my listing. I just happened to be in that group text message with the other listing agents. And so I just put a cry face because I didn't want them to be like, oh my God, we have another agent in this group message that just witnessed us talking bad about another agent. You know, I was just trying to make light of it because, again, I'm representing my buyer to get into that property as well. And I didn't want to make them feel awkward. And now it would have hindered my relationship with the listing agents that would impact my buyer. So
No, 100%. I think you handled that really well too.
yeah, I just put cry face, haha, like yeah, so that's just an example of being respectful to our colleagues. Honor offer timelines. If an offer has a short timeline, communicate it with the seller, communicate that you do not want your offer shopped. And listing agents honor the timeline request. So this is a big one that I feel the industry lacks etiquette around, with honoring offer timelines. I know through COVID and the pandemic, you know, offers that had timelines just kind of got ignored, and they would, you know, offers were heavily shopped. And so now this is really part of my high level communication, which I'll get to for the last one. But I'm very transparent when I speak with a listing agent and I'm submitting on behalf of my buyer. And I communicate, hey, you know, are you in touch with the seller? If I submit an offer this afternoon, how quickly do you think you'll be able to present it to the seller? And I, you know, get that feedback from them. If they tell me, oh, you know, as soon as you submit it, I'll sit down with my seller and send it over to them, or I'll be meeting with them at 6 o'clock this evening. So if you get it in this afternoon, you can expect a response by us, you know, in the evening, no later than tomorrow. And I asked the listing agent, may I put a timeline? I'd like to put a 24-hour timeline, or maybe a 3-hour timeline, whatever that timeline is that you feel comfortable with. If you're not in multiple offers and it's just your buyer and the seller, and ask them so that they're giving you the time that they feel comfortable with. So then again, there's a level of commitment on their part, right? And they are kind of collaborating with you on that timeline. And make sure that you're transparent about that you're going to submit a time. The last thing a listing agent wants is an offer being submitted with a very short timeline, and there's been no communication about it. That is very poor etiquette. And a lot of agents lack that high level communication because they're afraid, well, maybe if I ask for the timeline, the seller is going to say no, or they're going to know that I'm submitting an offer with a timeline, and they're going to quickly get in touch with other buyers and try and, you know, drum up other business to compete against my buyer. I mean, we can come up with so many things that are possible outcomes of what might happen. But that's living in the future. Right. And I'm living in the now, and I want to set my buyer up for success, and I want to set up that relationship for success. So I always communicate with transparency, and I always try and get buy-in from the other side so that we're always working together, so that we're a team, even though we're, you know, opposing counsels per se. But again, there is some level of camaraderie and etiquette that is going into that relationship from the start. And then listing agents, honor the timeline request. If that agent is being respectful and asking for the timeline and communicating, then follow that. So many times I've had listing agents, you know, oh, you know, maybe it's an excuse, maybe it's not, but a lot of excuses where they get to me, you know, 2 days later, and I had a timeline that they said they would be able to meet that was shorter than that 3-day default timeline on the contract. So again, I think this is really good etiquette in our industry, that we're honoring what's been agreed upon ahead of time, assuming that that conversation took place. So the fourth etiquette behavior in my top 5 is listing agents love feedback. We love feedback about our properties. If you bring a buyer to one of our listings, please give me feedback. And I write here that there is a temporal relationship with feedback, meaning it should be immediate, right? Temporal relationship is the time between two things happening, right? The time between you going and showing the property and then providing that feedback. It should be immediate. And the best thing is when I don't have to solicit for that feedback. When an agent follows up after the showing and reassures me they turned off all the lights, they locked up the property, and by the way, here's my buyer's feedback, and they will or won't be submitting an offer. That is 5-star etiquette. Always give feedback to the listing agent after the showing. This may create other opportunities for your client. What I mean by that is I'm going to go to my feedback example. And here it is. It should be it should be immediate, immediate, specific. What did the client like? What was lacking or not preferred based on your client's specific criteria? Know your client's criteria. And is or is it not the home for your client? So this is an example. Hi, Donna. Thank you for showing your property on 123 Main Street to me and my client Edgar this afternoon. Edgar loved the location, right? So what did he like? The size of the yard and the layout. The seller did a nice job on the kitchen remodel as well. Edgar is ultimately looking for, right? So notice how I didn't say Edgar didn't like, right? I'm not presenting it as a negative, right? My communication is, what is he actually looking for that maybe this property is lacking in, right? So Edgar is ultimately looking for 2 full baths and wants to be a little closer to the highway. We will not be moving forward with an offer at this time, right? So I put at this time because it leaves it open, right? Because maybe Edgar spends another week looking for properties and he's like, there's nothing that I really liked. And even though it had 1.5 baths and it was a little further from the highway than I wanted, you know what, that property might just work for me. Let's write an offer. So I kind of leave this open for interpretation, right? We're not going to be moving forward with an offer at this time. Much appreciation, Sarah, right? And so what's great about feedback is because I've provided what my client is ultimately looking for, on several occasions, I have had listing agents reach back out to me and say, hey, Sarah, thanks for your feedback. You know what? I actually have a listing coming to market in a week or so that meets your client's criteria. Boom. Now I've got an opportunity that hasn't come to market yet. Perhaps they might show it to me, before it comes to market. And I've just built rapport and maintained rapport with the listing agent. I've given them that feedback and they're creating an opportunity for me, right? And so I love this habit. I love this type of etiquette. It's done so much for my business and I built so many relationships from this. And every time I send immediate feedback without it having been asked from me, the listing agent is always super grateful. Like, thank you so much for your feedback, Sarah. I've had listing agents tell me that getting feedback is like pulling teeth. So I always do that. And again, I maintain that type of reputation in the industry. So when people, when I request showings, they're like, yeah, go out and show it, Sarah, because I know you're going to lock up, you're going to follow up with me, you're going to give me feedback. They need that feedback for their sellers, right? All right, lastly, this is probably the most important, is high level communication means being transparent, right? It doesn't mean giving away all your cards or oversharing and disadvantaging your client's negotiative position. No, it means being honest and transparent through the entire transaction, from scheduling the showing and maybe you're running 10 minutes late. Text the listing agent, let them know, hey, I'm running 10 minutes late. From submitting an offer, giving them a call before you submit an offer and asking high-level questions that are going to put your buyer in an advantageous position, to getting your offer accepted and entering into escrow. Make sure you communicate when your inspections are happening and which inspections you're getting, because all that communication is, again, great etiquette. you're being transparent, you're giving that agent assurance that you are a high level communicator. So should something come up or should something happen, you're more likely to be able to navigate it smoothly with the other side. Always keep communication top of mind, and just be honest. If you're, you know, if something's going on and your buyer needs more time with inspections, just let the listing agent know. And I think this works both way with listing agents as well on the other side with buyers, right? I know different listing agents have practices around how they negotiate and how they want to set their sellers up for success. But I absolutely love when listing agents are transparent about, how many offers do they have really, and where are those offers at? Fine if you don't want to share that exact number and you want to keep a little mystery around where the numbers are to drive a little competition. But, hey, are we pushing 1.5? Like, where do I need to come in to make sure that my buyer's offer is going to get at least a counter offer? And if you tell me that you're going to counter everybody, then please counter everybody, right? And if you're not, and that has changed somewhere on the back end with your seller, then make sure that you're communicating that, or you're following up with people that were interested in submitting offers and saying, hey, actually the seller is, and we're getting a lot more offers than anticipated. We're just going to be countering the top 5. And right now, the lowest in the top 5 is, pushing the 1.25 mark. So if you want to get into that top 5, try and submit above that. Again, just keeping high level communication. It's done wonders for my business. And yeah, that's it. That ends the presentation for today on etiquette and leveling up your business with some etiquette.
I love that. Honestly, like, I didn't realize that there was so much that goes on behind the scenes too, where, you'll have an agent saying or doing something, and, I really do think that honesty is one of the building blocks of building a good relationship with somebody. And it's crazy to think about the fact that some of the stories that you shared today are like things that have actually happened to you, and things that have just gone on in the industry. And I think that everyone needs a little bit of just going back to the basics in terms of etiquette every now and then.
Yeah, like please and thank you goes so far. And I wish we still had etiquette classes in the high schools and junior highs. And it's especially in this industry, you're dealing with the general population and different cultures and diverse backgrounds. And so there's definitely going to be some interactions that we may not be used to if we're taking into consideration diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And so I think in general there's certain types of etiquette that are cross-cultural, and that's why in my opinion, like, having that high level communication, the more in tune you are with the other side, you'll get a better understanding of how they communicate. What is their communication style and what are their values, right? Because our values drive communication. And so if we can, align values from the start and match and mirror the other side, we have, better chances of having those smooth transactions and relationships, and ultimately getting the best outcomes for our clients, which is our fiduciary, right? And practicing with integrity and keeping that at top of mind. So yeah, I think ultimately just, communicating effectively.
Absolutely. There was another room actually. I'm not sure if you've met or spoken with Tony Gonzalez, but he's another one of our Radius agents over in Florida. And so he's done this series about using psychology to build instant rapport. And like breaking down different psychological behavioral profiles. So you've got the driver, you've got the expressive, you've got
the DISC profile.
Yeah, exactly. And so he kind of goes through and talks about, the way that you approach transactions and relationship building with people is going to be different depending on who you're speaking with, and knowing how to adjust and adapt is going to be really, really key in being successful, especially in an industry like real estate, where communication and relationships is the
It
crux
drives
of.
everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so it's not necessarily always about what you know, but it's always, sometimes it can be about who you know. And
Yeah.
so I think that this
People want
is
to work with people they like.
exactly.
That's the reality.
And at the end of the day, if you're not like
Likeable.
showing that you're somebody that's that can be likable, if you can't be kind to one another, then that's exactly where you start to run into problems. And I think this is something that everybody needs to know. So
Cool. Well, thank you for the opportunity, and much appreciated.
of course,
Always happy to share my knowledge.
um